What is up, guys? It is the Turtle Girl. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about how I tamed my leopard gecko Kuzan and kind of some steps I took in order to get him socialized and comfortable with handling. So with that, I have to take him out and you can kind of see him in the back there. But before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and ring the notification bell so you can see all of my future videos. I make turtle videos, pet videos, and fun stuff like this every single Friday and you don't want to miss out. So hit the subscribe button, and with that, let's get started. So you can see Kuzan is kind of back there in the corner just chilling. It is the late afternoon right now, so it's kind of getting to evening time where I normally handle him, and I'll get him out and we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm just gonna go ahead and open the front glass. Let him know I'm here. Hi, buddy. Hey. And kind of just gently let him come on from the bottom. Alright, so now we've got Kuzan here, and let's talk a bit about how you can tame your geckos so that they can be comfortable with handling. Now, it's good to note that some geckos are just naturally more skittish than others, and the whole handling and socialization, there is, to some extent, some stuff you can do to condition them to be familiar with you and used to you and not afraid of you. But this interaction may not ever be something that they really enjoy. It's more for your own personal enjoyment so that you can, interact with your animal. Some are just gonna run around and some are just not gonna like being handled. They are reptiles after all. They don't necessarily need human interaction. So that's really the biggest thing you want to keep in mind when you get into trying to figure out how to handle your gecko. And so how do you get them to this point where they can just chill on your hand or chill on your shoulder, relax with you while you're watching TV, or just running around all over you like a jungle gym? How do you get to that point where they are not afraid of you and know that you're not a threat? So just a little bit of backstory on me and Kuzan. I got Kuzan in January of last year, so I've had him for about a year and a half now. He's my first lizard, my first leopard gecko, and also my only leopard gecko, so just a little bit of a qualifier on my experience. But basically what I did with him was, when I first initially got him, I left him alone for the first couple of weeks of having him so that he could just get used to the environment, so that he could get started eating, explore his new territory, and kind of just settle in without having to worry about this other outside, I guess for lack of a better word, predator or another creature that's, moving around outside of his tank. Now, sometimes I would go, look at him and just study by his tank, because his tank was actually right next to my desk. And so I would just be there kind of in his presence. He could see me, I could move around, but I wasn't actually sticking my hand in the tank or anything like that, except for when I gave food. One really big thing with animals is, in taming them down, you want them to associate you with good things. So calm handling, food is a really, really big one, and you just want them to know that you are safe. And so I left him alone for the first couple of weeks, and then I went very, very slow through this whole process. And so the first stage was kind of just that first 2 weeks, leaving him alone, just kind of being around in his presence, letting him know that I was there, but not actually reaching into the tank. The second stage was kind of just associating him with feeding. So whenever he would eat, I would watch him and make sure he was finishing all his food. I was bowl feeding at the time, so I would just, take all his dubia roaches in a bowl, stick the bowl inside the tank, and then just kind of watch from the outside. Wasn't tongue feeding or anything like that at that point, and he could see me through the glass. The third stage was actually letting him touch my hand and sniff my hand. I would place my hand into the tank. At the time I had a top opening terrarium, and so I would just very, very calmly and slowly put my hand in the tank to let him explore it, smell it if he wanted to, and I would just leave it there for maybe 5 minutes. If he wanted to come over and explore, I would let him do that, but at this point I was not trying to pick him up. I was just trying to familiarize him with the presence of my hand. I did this for the first couple of days before actually trying to hold him. Now, when it came time to actually pick up the gecko, I know a leopard gecko is a very common first pet, and especially if it's your first reptile, your first lizard, your first gecko, it can be kind of intimidating to reach in there and grab something. You want to make sure you're doing it correctly, and so you can be very, very worried. Oh, look at him. He's gonna go in my hair. We don't want that. Come here. You can be very, very nervous, and that's okay, but the important thing is to have confidence when you're doing it. If you're just gonna go in there and timidly just kind of, you know, try to get the gecko to go on you, the gecko can sense that and sense your hesitation, and it can just make them less confident as well and cause them to be more skittish. So just be confident. Smooth, even motions, pick them up from the bottom. Obviously, I'm sure you've already heard it at this point, but never pick them up by the tail because they can drop it. You just very confidently want to scoop under their hand, support their body weight, and lift them out of the tank. Once you have them out, don't restrain them, let them roam as they please. Some of them will just be happy to, you know, curl up in your hands and soak up your warmth. Others will kind of like Kuzan, just, you know, walk wherever and kind of explore, smell. You can see his tongue is going a little bit right now. Now, obviously, if they're being very skittish and trying to squirm out of your grip, you may just need to take more time to get them familiar with you. And just remember, confidence is really, really important. I will mention that the best time to handle them is probably in the evening. You don't want to be waking them up in the middle of the day just so you can hold them. That can add to the stress because imagine if you were woken up in the middle of your sleep cycle, you probably wouldn't be very happy. So usually it's best to handle them in the evening when they're first waking up. Another great way to get them used to you is by feeding them food or special treats by your hands or with tongs, and that way they associate you with food. Like I said in the beginning, associating them with positive experiences is a great way to get your gecko to like you. Now honestly, I would say that leopard geckos are pretty easy, but if you end up with a feisty one, just take it slowly, gradually get them used to you, and they should be just happy to roam around in no time, or rather, you know, maybe a couple months it'll take you to tame them down. I have found that consistently handling them yields the best results, so slowly building up the amount of time you have them out and also doing it on a regular basis so that they are constantly familiarized with you, constantly socializing if you do really want them to be a good gecko for handling, because the more you have them out, the more they get used to you. And so I wouldn't say overdo it. Usually I only handle Kuzan a couple days out of the week, but I do notice that when I take breaks, usually he can be a little bit more skittish, but as you can see, he's pretty well behaved. He doesn't run ever too often. But if your gecko does for some reason all of a sudden kind of like panic and start running, you have to remain calm. Just make sure you prevent them from running and escaping, place them back in their enclosure, and just continue the process. Don't get discouraged. They can be conditioned to get used to handling. It's just something that takes time and patience, and of course, a little bit of a bribe. Food is really a good way to get them used to you. So that is how you can tame your leopard gecko, and that is how I tamed Kuzan, my leopard gecko here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to drop a thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all next Friday. Have a totally awesome day. Bye-bye.